Welcome back, everybody, to the Omniverse Comics Guide podcast. We are your Omniverse Comics Guide guys. I'm Eric. That's my pal, Dave.
Hello.
Dave, how the hell are you?
I am. Oh. How are you?
I'm doing good. The new studio looks great. I love it. I love the
Thank
Omniverse
you.
banner in the background.
This is
Lovely. And
where it's
the
happening.
reading nook. That little reading
Can you
nook
see
for
that? My little nook.
I love it. Yeah. That's where the
I have
Supreme
my
Intelligence
nookie.
sits.
That's not.
And the Omega Bread's not even here yet. That's where the Supreme Intelligence of the Omniverse sits and does the reading orders.
That's right.
Reads everything that he puts in those reading orders. That's
There you
the
go.
spot.
That's
I love
the
it.
spot. That's the source of our power. And this is also where I say, hey, ladies, come to my place and look at my impressive comic collection. Oh, have you seen my Transformers? Where you go? Where you go? What? Hello? Hello? Oh.
And then Wednesday
Another
comes
one.
along and you hang out with us.
Yeah.
So everybody that usually is with us on Twitch, if you're watching on Twitch for the first time, thanks for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, the wonderfully edited and very entertaining show that we have on YouTube of the Omniverse, thanks to my pal Dave. Hit that rate and subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. Share the show if you like it. And of course, on all the podcast platforms, give us a rate and subscribe as well. Leave us a review. We appreciate the review. It helps us. It lets us know where we're slipping or where we're
Tripping.
doing well. Oh, yeah, exactly. And of course, omniversecomics.guide. I can't say enough good things about that site if you're a comic book fan and you're looking for a place to find reading orders, reading reviews, podcasts, everything that we do. It's all there, omniversecomics.guide.
Yay.
Dave.
Hello.
Deadpool versus Wolverine.
Yeah.
We've had this one in the chamber for a little bit.
We have.
Planning it out.
Yeah.
Are you excited for the movie?
It's one of the
only
few
natural to
films
bring
I'm
up-
kind of excited about.
Yeah, right?
From like a superhero film perspective. Yeah, it's one of the few. Just because I really like the last one. I didn't like the first one. I really like the last one. And I just want to... It just looks like they're going to have fun with it. So let's just see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. Deadpool was a character that I didn't like off of principle for a long time because he was kind of like that not original. He was like that Harley Quinn. He had that effect where everybody was into this badass character. It's so cool. He breaks the fourth wall. Like
Yeah.
it just became the common cosplay and the
Yeah.
over and over, which is very proliferated, as they say. So I just didn't like Deadpool on principle, but he's a character that's grown on me.
Oh,
and the
okay.
movies have too.
Yeah. I think it helps having someone like Ryan Reynolds who kind of understands the character and does him really well. Have you ever talked to comic creators about Deadpool cosplayers?
No, I haven't.
I got into a conversation about it. They hate them.
Why?
They can't stand... Because like Deadpool cosplayers tend to be the ones that can like, I can just behave however I want at a Comic-Con.
Understood.
Yeah.
Right. I'm cosplaying as Deadpool.
Yeah, therefore I'm Deadpool.
But yes, we're talking about Deadpool and Wolverine and the movie that's coming this month, end of the month.
Oh, is it this month?
Probably closer to when people get this episode, so it'll just line up real well.
Nice. We're doing a little differently, aren't we, tonight?
We are. We're making it a little interesting. It was a good idea on your part, actually, to split our 5 choices and do a
literal
head-to-head.
Wolverine
Literal
stories
head-to-head.
versus Deadpool stories. And then you, the viewers, can choose which ones you would prefer or something. Leave a comment below in the thing and say which ones you'd prefer and subscribe and follow and thumbs up and all that shit.
What he just did. Perfect. We got to put that on a reel.
Oh, do it.
And all that shit. Do you have are you a fan of these characters naturally? Like,
I think
do any of them sort of, yeah.
Same with any characters. Like there are good stories and not great stories. I think that when they're so prolific and there's so many things out there, there's going to be bad stories. So I don't necessarily look for Deadpool stories, but there've been some periods of time that I've really, really liked, or some storylines that I've really, really liked. And I think some of this as well, I've got some, not necessarily fan theory stuff, because I don't really care about that, When you get those fan theory videos, like, this is what I reckon they're gonna have in the how they're gonna introduce the X-Men in the Deadpool versus Wolverine. Don't care. I just want to. I'll watch the film and I'll have fun with it. Thanks very much. But yeah, I do. I was always a fan of Wolverine as a kid. I wanted to be Wolverine as a kid, and like, what kid didn't? You know, because even though he's some pug ugly, gruff little dude with an attitude, he always got them's ladies. Didn't he? He could always win a fight.
And the knot.
And he had things coming out of his hands. And who didn't do that in their cutlery drawer?
Right?
Yeah, which you can't do that with Deadpool. You got to chop your own hands off to kind of emulate.
But yeah, I mean, as a kid, Wolverine was the coolest mutant.
Yeah, easy.
He didn't, and for superheroes, he didn't have a cape. He didn't really have an emblem. He just wore this brown and this brown suit or this blue and yellow suit. Which one do you prefer, blue or yellow, or brown and tan?
Torn, really torn. Don't know. Do you have a preference?
Probably blue and yellow.
Yeah.
Just because it looked like a more fun toy to play with as a kid.
I had the toy brown and tan from the Secret Wars toys. But I do wonder,
Right.
do you feel he represents Canada for you?
Interesting. I was gonna bring up something about Canada in one of my picks.
Oh, they're both Canadian, aren't they? I think Deadpool's Canadian.
Ryan Reynolds is Canadian. I don't know if Deadpool is, but I know Ryan Reynolds is Canadian, and him and that character are so intrinsically linked. I think even in the Cable Deadpool series, there's a moment where he refers to himself as a burnt-up looking Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Years before the movie.
Yeah, he's Canadian.
Pretty sure. Is he Canadian? Deadpool? All right, shout out to Canada.
Next week, we'll do some English superheroes like
Judge Dredd.
Oh, yeah. English? Well, I don't know if that's based in America, though.
Could be. So my first pick is going to be an obvious one, and that's the Chris Claremont, Frank Miller miniseries, Wolverine 1-4. It's easy to find, as if you're a first-time reader and you're like, what's a good Wolverine to pick up if I'm just the first time getting into the character. This, I think, it really lays groundwork for the character years and years to come. It leans into the Japanese connection and the samurai mythology that who is this guy? Like, when did this happen in his life sort of feel? Because in 1982, when he's a part of the X-Men and that's like the main place that you can find him and he's a pretty kick-ass character, there's not much more about Wolverine yet. These are pretty early touchstones for the character. So it leans into the romance of his life, other than Jean Grey, which, you know, he's always got a soft spot for Jean, but that whole, basically the movie that they felt they could make, the Wolverine movie, all is lifted from this book. But read the book. I always say read the book.
Yeah, no, definitely. He was the first X-Man to have his own mini with this. He was the first one. So, like, to trump the original 5, to trump any of the newer X-Men, it kind of showed where he was. Because Claremont wanted to get rid of him at one point, early on. And it was only Byrne that basically fought for him because he said he's one of the few Canadian characters. Don't get rid of him.
Right? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. It's a story that holds up. I think, again, there's a lot of... There's the sequel to it, which I think is pretty cool, too. The artwork is not as sharp as Frank Miller's, but the Wolverine Kitty Pryde...
Oh, that one,
series.
Yeah, that's...
A lot of fun stuff.
It's very strange, that one. Mariko Yoshida is... But yes, I mean, she's not introduced in this Wolverine miniseries, but... So when Wolverine meets her in Japan, when they're on their way home from the Savage Land, years and years ago, in the late 70s... And that's when he meets Mariko, and that's where she comes into it. So this miniseries kind of builds on that initial spark. Because she's kind of not supposed to want to be with him. So how do they overcome this barrier? Can they overcome this barrier? And then it happens in and around the From the Ashes storyline, which was the Paul Smith run of X-Men. In the next X Universe reading order entry, which will be coming at some point soon, that I'll explain how this fits into continuity as well. Yeah.
And usually when you get this trade, however you choose to read it, it comes with the 2 issues where there's a they're
It's
X-Men issues.
like a follow-up, yeah, an epilogue.
Yeah, in a way.
Yeah.
So it's really the stepping stones to the what later becomes the more broad Wolverine world of all these different things that some of my future picks might lean into that a little bit. But yes, it's a great place to start. It's an easy pick to put on a list. It's my one definitely obvious pick.
Nice.
Beat that, Dave.
I
Beat
can't.
Wolverine.
All right then.
Claremont
I'm gonna try and
right there.
fail. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Bring it
So
on.
I'm actually going to do a Wolverine issue. So this is my first Deadpool pick, and it's Wolverine number 88. I believe it is the first fight between Wolverine and Deadpool in the comics. It came out in 1994. I had a look, and I was trying to say they may well have done like some Untold Tale stuff as well. So like again, I'll list that and show how that all fits together. But I believe this was the first time they actually fought in a comic. But they talk like they know each other. It's part of Larry Hammer's run. It's got Andy Kubert art. Unfortunately, it's not Andy Kubert all the way through, as there's a second artist, Fabio Laguna, but it's obviously early days for him, and he's doing a lot of Jim Lee art swipes in there. So there's a lot of very familiar-looking panels. So it starts off pretty well with Adam Kubert's really kinetic art and his... Because by that point, he was going crazy with the panels. Because this was 2 issues before they did a Wolverine Sabretooth fight, which is almost like the definitive Wolverine Sabretooth fight, where it had fold-out pages where it was going so far across the issue. But this is Deadpool fighting Wolverine, and it just it is kind of a filler story while they're building up towards Age of Apocalypse. So it's all about Wolverine getting back to the X-Men after he's been away from them for a while, getting in his way for very little reason at all. You've got Deadpool, and it's just them throwing down. It's a weird story, but I think as an interesting piece with the film coming up, I thought if you want to see where they first butted heads, this is the issue. It's just one issue, Wolverine number 88. It's just a bit of fun. It's literally a bit of fun. It's not one of the greatest comics you're going to see. There's a very strange part where Wolverine is trying to catch up with Deadpool before he can kill his target, and so Wolverine's trying to get a cab there. And he ends up ripping through the door of the cab with his claws. But they're bone claws at the time. You're like, how does that work? And then he's like skidding down the street on this ripped off bit of time. What is this? Doesn't make any sense. But it's just fun. It's a mid-90s Wolverine comic with overblown art and a big unnecessary fight between these 2 characters. Just trying to have fun with it.
Sounds like it would make a good movie.
Well, yeah, someone should do that, right?
Right? My number 2?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This one I picked hoping that you were a fan of it because it's from one of your favorite creators. It's in the 90s.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read it. What you never do, I'm gonna do it. A band of drunken vigilantes pursues a crazed psychopath across the icy Yukon waste. They're not taking any prisoners. A race of mystical creatures descends on the Canadian North, hungry for souls. The mutant Wolverine, a clawed berserker lost in the Arctic blizzard, out of his mind. A dark descent into animal savagery.
Is it Bloodlust?
Bloodlust.
Uh-huh.
That's right. Bloodlust from Alan Davis, Paul Neary. I read it in my Wolverine Epic Collection, which is actually a Larry Hama, Mark Silvestri, the beginning of that run, which I'm looking forward to reading, but I want to go back and read all of
I
Wolverine.
can understand that.
I've never read this before. I said, Alan Davis did a little graphic novel of his own, just his own straight story beginning. I got to check this out. It's beautiful. Mm-hmm. Beautiful, first of all.
Yeah.
And what I was going to say before is what you had asked me about this Wolverine being Canadian. Wolverine is Canadian. Like, he's in Yukon, like the places I'll never go visit. I'm North American, Canadian. Like, if you think Canadian, Wolverine is true blue or red, whatever it is, Canadian. Because, man, the places he goes when he wants some rest and reprieve, I'm like, where are you going? There's better places.
So what's it actually like there? Is it just uninhabitable?
Where he goes, yeah, he goes into, like, the territories where it's, hunting and people there's that one bar in town. Like, he goes to those small towns, right? Where they have, like, a mining place. Like, everyone works at the mine. It's like, why you always got to go there, Wolverine? He likes it, though.
Well,
he likes it where it's all green and mountainous.
Years later.
But in this story, the art is beautiful. Just for it alone, check it out. Alan Davis, peak of his powers,
Yeah.
working on a character who Did you like this story?
Do you know what? It's been a long, long time since I've read it. What I will say about it, though, is what was weird about this, during this period, if a character had their own series or a team had their own series, they get an annual. And it'd be a numbered annual and it would come out every year. Wolverine didn't. He got a bookshelf edition instead. So they had like Wolverine the Jungle Adventure, Wolverine Inner Fury,
Right.
Wolverine Reign of Terror. And then
Right.
and they had this one. But there was so many, like it got to the point where I think they were releasing them almost more than one a year at some point, and it was a lot. So I mean, I've read this stuff, but it was early 90s.
This is 90. This
90.
is 1990, but it's got a again, Wolverine back home, but he's getting these visions. He's got his instincts are tied into something where he's getting what he feels are flashbacks of murder and pleasure from the memory. Like he feels like he's outlived it, and something's not sitting right with him. So it becomes somewhat of a mystical, Native American, spiritual leaning type of story, like that type of mystical aspect of it.
Yeah.
Where he essentially confronts Yetis in the northern Canadian outback, all snow, all cold, all uncomfortable, fighting these monstrous Yetis, figuring out what their history is and why he's having these flashbacks. They've done so many different Wolverine things at the time, but this was, Alan Davis. Go back and take a look at that art. It's gorgeous. It really, really is. And it's a really fun story. I like that it leans into a little bit more of the spiritual side of storytelling.
Okay, dude, my Deadpool number 2 is issue 11 of Deadpool's first ongoing series. This is actually one of my favourite comics of all time. So it's by Joe Kelly and Pete Woods. It's a giant size issue, and it takes place after issue 10, where he's accidentally sent back in time when he uses his teleporter while in contact with Doorman from the Great Lakes Avengers. So they're like the crap Avengers who are calling themselves Avengers, but they're not actually Avengers. And even then at that point, they're not even Avengers because they're trying to tap into the popularity of the Thunderbolts, thinking they're good guys. So they're called the Lightning Rods. So it's Deadpool versus the Lightning Rods this week. And then he ends up falling through time with Blind Al, who people might know from the films. She looks a bit different in the comics, and this plays into the story. So he ends up going back in time to 1967, where they kind of land on Aunt May Parker, and and then they get into shenanigans. So this is what Joe Kelly called gumping. So they gump Deadpool and Blind Al into an old issue of Amazing Spider-Man. So it's Amazing Spider-Man number 47.
I like that.
Where Spider-Man fights Kraven, although in this storyline, Spider-Man doesn't fight Kraven. Deadpool has no idea Peter Parker and Spider-Man are the same person, but he's trying to... He kind of pretends to be Peter Parker with his image inducer, while Blind Al is pretending to be Aunt May. And they're kind of giving the issue this commentary, and it's this really cynical commentary. There's a bit where Mary Jane would come in, and this is the original panels for the most part. It's a mix of original panels and then Pete Wood's art done in John Romita's style. When Mary Jane comes in, she's just dancing in the living room for no reason at all, because it's the 60s. and
right.
Blind Al is basically like so disappointed that someone so young is on crack. It's one of those things where, like, I don't know if you could do so. Some of what is said in it, I don't think you could get away with today. So Ed McGuinness was the artist initially on the series, and then Pete Woods took over. So they tried to get someone with a similar-ish style that's not quite the same. But I think he did a really nice job, because especially this issue, this is one of my favourite comics, because it's so irreverent. And it's not mean-spirited, but it doesn't hold back, but also stays within the comic codes. So it's such a tricky balance. But yeah, a double-sized issue of Deadpool and Blind Al basically referencing stuff like Forrest Gump, referencing Back to the Future, all this stuff as they try and get back to the present. Really silly. I laughed out loud a few times reading this, and I don't laugh out loud reading stuff unless it's very funny. Deadpool was one of the new books that came out of that period where there were no Avengers and FF in the mainstream Marvel universe. So there was Heroes for Hire and Thunderbolts. Kazar by Mark Waid and Andy Kubert came from this, and that was an amazing book. That was amazing. And it was a really nice time to focus on some of those lower tier characters. And this was a period of time when Deadpool wasn't Mr. Popular.
All right. This is from the 2000s. It is Wolverine, Enemy of the State. Dave, is there a reading order for this?
The reading order for this is coming out this week.
Woo!
Because what a lot of people don't know is that this is a crossover. So most people have only read the 12-part storyline, but there are tie-in issues as well.
Nice. So, I guess it's a pretty smart pick for me to pick Wolverine, Enemy of the State.
I like it. I swear I didn't feed him.
It collects Wolverine number 20 to 32.
Yeah.
In this particular copy that I read it in. I haven't read it for years, and I just remember really, really liking it the first time that I read it. I was like, man, Wolverine's a pretty kick-ass character. Like, damn, that was good. That's all I remembered of the story. The premise essentially is that he is brainwashed and used by Hydra.
Mm-hmm.
And then he bounces back and realizes what they did to him. And now he's after Hydra.
Uh-huh.
So you get your first 6 issues dealing with a possessed Wolverine, not in a magical way, but brainwashed, and you realize how scary Wolverine is. Like all the X-Men are like, how do we stop him? And
Yeah.
you're thinking to yourself, all you guys can't stop. We can't figure out a way to stop the guy. And the way that it's written by Mark Millar or Mark Miller, depending where you're from, how you've been told to say it,
Miller.
and John Romita Miller, and John Romita Jr. Love John Romita Jr.
Yeah.
I think we had a conversation last week where I said to you, if John Romita drew the entire Marvel universe, that's the guy I would probably pick for everybody.
Yeah.
Because he's done such key stories for
He has.
nearly every character.
And, pretty much everybody.
Pretty much, yeah. So this is no exception for me. John Romita Jr. loves rain. There's a lot of rain in this book. But it also goes kind of hand in hand with some of the things that the first couple picks will give you the groundwork for a story like this to have a little bit more, have a bit more of appreciation for it. You don't know that Wolverine is a secret spy for so many years from the other stuff I recommended, but this leads heavily into like Japan and the Hand, and there's Elektra is involved, and his relationship with Nick Fury is explored, which Wolverine has a really cool. You kind of think of Captain America and Nick Fury maybe from the movies and a lot of the Avengers and whatnot, but Wolverine and Nick Fury have a history as well.
They do.
It's Mark Miller.
Yeah, it's
right?
It's
He's full
bombastic.
of surprises.
It's cinematic.
Bombastic.
It's shameless. There's parts where you could probably go, yeah, but does this make sense? Don't worry too much about it. Just have fun with it. But what's interesting about your 3 picks so far as well is you've picked stories with a real control theme when it comes to Wolverine. So Wolverine from 1982 is about him trying to control that side of himself because he was still a little out of control at that point.
Right.
And it's him trying to kind of lean more into the man side of himself to earn Mariko, to earn her affection, earn her hand. And that was a big turning point for him. Bloodlust then is about that kind of level of justice. He's not just a wild animal. He will still have a sense of right and wrong. And then this is about what happens if that control is then all gone and how everyone is afraid of him. So that's an interesting set of stories to read in a row.
There's so many places you can go where he fits. And you're like, I don't know why, but this little short Canadian guy just works out.
It does. It's you're right, though. They could basically pick him up and drop him any way you like. Actually, in answer to the Meat Trunks question, what year was it published? It was 2004 to 2005. So it kind of crosses over that period of time where they released New Avengers. And even though they mention briefly, they allude to the New Avengers, in the story itself, the New Avengers haven't happened yet, because New Avengers in some way is Wolverine's redemption arc. They don't really want him on the team, but he needs to be more in the limelight and be a good guy and do, that was the very loose idea, but that's what they were thinking when they kind of went like, okay, well, this has all happened, and now he kind of needs to not be the scary guy, and that's why he's in the Avengers.
So cool. Yeah, it's good stuff. I was happy to reread it.
Same.
It was, like you said, bombastic. I appreciated it differently than the first time I read it because now I've read so many more comics and I kind of know Mark Miller's style and things that he's known for doing.
Yeah.
Like you said, some of the stuff, it's like, does this really make sense? But who cares?
Yeah.
Just go with it. John Romita Jr. is drawing it. Like, there's a point where, spoilers, I did it. Wolverine is on a sentinel.
Oh,
flying.
It's shameless, isn't it?
Right?
Shameless.
Like,
Does this make sense? Doesn't matter. Look at
Come on.
Look at that.
That's right.
I got to say, man, this storyline is riddled with some of the best John Romita Jr. splash pages ever.
This is him peak performance. He's firing on all cylinders here.
Beautiful. I just wanted to say as well, thanks so much for people hanging in while I've been moving. I've been trying to kind of make sure the website has still got stuff posted on it. As for what's new to the Omniverse, we have Secret War from 2004, which is the Bendis and Delotto event. That is one of the events that leads into New Avengers. We've also got Marvel Knights 2099, which was a kind of fun 5th week event. That's all written by Robert Kirkman. From DC Comics, we've got Nuclear Roulette, which is one of the first times Barbara Gordon has faced the Joker since The Killing Joke. Infinite Frontier Incarnate, which is the main storyline from Infinite Frontier, which is post-Dark Knight's death metal. This is the first part of a run of events that I'm adding onto the site that are leading up to Dark Crisis. Podcast and video, the new manga spotlight, Odd Couples, which covers 3 new releases from the manga side of things, which features our very own Raf Cascarino. Also, we've got our incoming for July 2024. So the new releases for this very month and our 10 picks, what we think you really, really shouldn't miss, along with a few extra ones at the end. Special feature, we've got Kickstarter Spotlight, which is The Art of Ian Richardson Volume 2. That's it. That's what we got.
All right. OmniverseComics.guide. Check it out. Your number 3.
My numero 3 is... all mine have got guest appearances in. They're kind of like team-up stories. So if you like Deadpool teaming up with people, here's another one for you. And it's that friggin' Wolverine guy again. So this is from Wolverine Origins 21 to 25. So this came out in 2008. This is Wolverine versus Deadpool for 5 solid issues, and it works like a Roadrunner cartoon. So it's written by Daniel Way, it's drawn by Steve Dillon of Punisher fame, Punisher and Preacher fame, I should say, and it's just the two of them going at it, and you don't even really know why. And it's a pretty quick read because it is them just knocking the shit out of each other for 5 issues. And in the 5th issue, the end of the 4th issue, you start to realize what's happening, but it's not fully revealed till the end. But that's all it is. It's just a ridiculous amount of fun, and it's pretty funny. It's very, very cartoonish. It's very violent. But the big question in this storyline is who actually hired Deadpool to kill Wolverine. The other big question is, who wins? Because actually, this is one of those times when, there is a winner.
Sounds like
for the
make
most
a really
part,
cool movie.
It would, wouldn't it? I reckon someone should do that, dude. That's a really good idea. Yeah.
With those same 2 characters.
Yeah, you reckon in the same story?
Okay, all right. My number 4, I'm going in chronological order, actually. Trying to, anyways.
Okay.
Of publishing and
Me
Wolverine.
too. Funnily enough.
I noticed.
Oh.
Mine is from Wolverine and the X-Men.
Oh.
So this was an Omni that I picked up for a really good deal, and I said, why not read it? If I want to find some Wolverine stories, why not read a whole omnibus that has his name on it? He's not in it quite as much as the title would say, which is fine. Like he's in the whole book, but he's not every story revolves around him.
Mm-hmm.
Issues 25 to 29. It's Jason Aaron. Obviously, he's the whole series is by him, except for a few issues. But these are the issues drawn by Ramon Perez, friend of the show. Shout out to Ramon Perez, local guy. But it legitimately was the one storyline that caught my attention as far as a really good Wolverine story, because it incorporates elements of the Origin series from Paul Jenkins. And it does the really cool effect of that sort of washed paint effect
Oh,
when you
yeah.
go back in time.
I like that.
And I love that. And Ramon Perez is great at it. Those purples and those colors of memory, right? He leans into that a lot. And the premise is Wolverine is taking the students, handpicked students that are the main characters in the team or in the school, and he brings them to the Savage Land for a lesson. It's called Savage Learning, and he speaks to each of the students on their way there or while they're there and gives them a little advice or tells them something about his life story. Different anecdotes, but because the storyline is involving his brother Dog, who is also hunting them, it all kind of ties in very nicely. It does this nice little dance of, hey, if you've never read Wolverine Origins, maybe you want to check this out, or if you want to know this about Wolverine, little tidbits of advice that he gives each of them in each issue. It's a nice little forward motion story, but also a good callback all in one. And I think the choice of going with Ramon Perez on the art for these 5 issues was a good one. And it's funny. There's an irreverence to it. Like, it knows what it is. And there's a lot of times where you're thinking, like, is this really Wolverine? Like, it's a little bit comedic, but it works. It really works.
Okay, my Deadpool choice for number 4 is a team book he was on. Ooh, it's Thunderbolts. So this was the Red Hulk's Thunderbolts team, so Thunderbolt Ross. So it makes sense for it to be Thunderbolts in a slightly different way. He picks some red-themed characters, basically. Well, you got the Punisher in there. Well, the skull on his shirt is now red, so red. You got Deadpool. You've got Venom, the Flash Thompson Venom, Elektra.
Right.
You've got the leader who's back since World War Hulks, but he's now red instead of green. And so you've got this little squad, and the deal he makes with them is if they help him on a mission or 2, he will then pay them back by helping them with their mission of choice. In this story arc, it's an Infinity tie-in, which was the Jonathan Hickman Avengers event, which I wasn't a huge fan of, but this was the one part of the story I quite liked. In this one, it's the Punisher's turn. He wants to take out the guys behind the guys. So it's always mob stuff with the Punisher, ultimately, isn't it? And they kind of eye roll a little bit, like, oh, all right. But apparently there are these mob guys who got really smart, and they sit behind everyone else. So when one mob group, one little mafia group is taken down, they set the next group up. So these people are so well protected because they need them. So if Frank can take these guys down, he can screw over the mob massively. Except now he's got one of the best assassins on the planet. He's got a Hulk on his side. He's also got Venom and Deadpool. Although in this story, he doesn't necessarily have Deadpool. This is one of these things where we're kind of showing how or why Deadpool may or may not be a team player. How it ends is kind of interesting. So it's written by Charles Soule. So the series was written by Daniel Way initially, but Charles Soule jumps on for this arc. And I think I preferred it to the stuff that came before. The art is by Hefte Parlo. I could see his art may not be to everyone's taste. It's quite weird and angular, and it's very odd. But I think it works, because it's so exaggerated, and there's quite a funny element to this story. So it is very tongue-in-cheek. So it's a mix between the Thunderbolts chasing after Frank's mission to take down all these mob guys, plus there's an alien invasion going on in New York City at the same time because of Infinity and Thanos coming to Earth with the Black Order, and all hell breaks loose with hilarious consequences. So it's just a fun little 5-parter. I really quite liked it, and I hadn't read it in a long time. And I wasn't sure if it was going to have lived up to the hype. But it's just a fun read, and it's very, very quick. Again, it's like you can tell the difference when I read Deadpool 11. It probably took as long to read that as it took to read Thunderbolts 14 to 18.
So an obvious one for my number 5, but not quite. I'm going to throw you off a little bit. It's going to be a bit of a swerve. My number 5 pick is going to be Old Man Logan from Jeff Lemire.
I've never read that.
Sorrentino. I read the first 13 issues. I'm not done the series. I'm going to pick issues 9 to 13, just as a story arc in between it all. I don't want to pick the whole thing. But the premise of this Old Man Logan is that, if I remember correctly, because I don't know if it's fully explained just yet, but this is taking place at a time when Wolverine in the 616 is dead or covered in adamantium.
Yes.
Speaking of Charles Soule,
Yeah.
who wrote that, and
He
Steve
did.
McNiven drew. Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
So there is no Wolverine on the board in regular Marvel continuity as we know it. So this one comes from the past to try to change whatever outcome happened in his timeline.
Right.
It figures if I come and I step in, this chaos won't ensue. This dystopian future that is the Old Man Logan future that we know from the Maestro and all of that history, which it leans into and explores concurrently. So you get him in the 616 now with storyline tying into what he was doing back in his own timeline.
Right.
So the storyline I'm referring to is The Last Ronin, again leaning into the whole Japanese history of it, but he's going there for revenge, trying to track down Lady Deathstrike, who was his main antagonist in the previous storyline, where her and the Reavers
like the
come hunting
616
for
version.
Yes, they're coming to hunt this old man Logan that has showed up on the scene, her and the Reavers. And he's in a small little Canadian town. She shows up, all hell breaks loose. He wants her to answer for it. But he finds out, there's the storyline, he finds out that she's been kidnapped and brought to Japan. He's like, I don't care who has her. I'm going to rescue her and kill her myself. Like, that's his mission. What it turns out to be is a little bit more of a team up with Old Man Logan and Lady Deathstrike. Pretty cool shit. The texture of Sorrentino's art with this storyline, it goes well together for me. Okay. I think he was the right artist for it. And him and Lemire, I think, have a kind of a proven team up style, if you will. The Old Man Logan series, I think it came out 2016. Hoping that they'd collect it and put it in some nicer format because it's good stuff.
So my final choice for tonight is one I rated fairly highly, and this is the first time that I read it since, and it's good. selling it. So it's Deadpool against one of my favorite characters of all time. So like I say, I've mostly kind of ended up doing team ups tonight. That's been my angle, but it's by Jerry Duggan. I'm not the biggest Jerry Duggan fan, and Matteo Lolli, I may have mispronounced that, so apologies, but it was around a time when Jerry Duggan was writing Deadpool, and it puts him almost in a more idealized environment for him as he finds little bits out about himself. And this was just after Matt Fraction's Hawkeye series, so you've got the two Hawkeyes, Kate Bishop and Clint Barton, and it was also around a time when Deadpool was kind of a bit more settled, and he finds out he's got a daughter. I don't want to spoil stuff overly much from the Duggan run if you haven't read it and want to, but it wasn't a run that really did it for me, because I know that obviously sometimes you want to set these characters who constantly fail up with something really, really good because you know it's going to come down, but it's just not a situation I want to see Deadpool in. But this is him and Hawkeye trying to solve a mystery together, and it's got its funny moments, and it's pretty damn nice to look at. And it's them against the Black Cat when she had gone kind of full rogue, full mob boss, and she's running a whole villainous thing, which is another thing I was struggling to adjust to. That's not how she is. It's not how she is. So it was a bit of a weird one. But when I first read it, I thought, like, I don't care. This is working for me. This is just quite a nice, fun book. It's Hawkeye versus Deadpool number 0. And then 1 to 4. So it's a 5-issue miniseries, really. So 0 sets it up, and then the 4 issues are just the ridiculousness of those two teaming up and Hawkeye trying to prove his worth. It's funny because like this was a period of time when they were kind of going, isn't Hawkeye a bit crap? When actually he'd established himself for decades, you know. But like, this is a dude with a bow and arrow. What good can he do? We've established this already. He led the Avengers in the West Coast. Like, come on. But this is kind of a bit of what they're doing here, but I guess it's that element of chaos that you can't quite prepare for with Deadpool. It's just a fun, silly book. If you're familiar with the two, you're into the films, and if you liked Hawkeye, the TV show, or Hawkeye's appearances in Avengers, it's a probably more familiar looking Hawkeye to you. And if you like Deadpool, you get Deadpool. So as a recommendation, it might be more for fans who are kind of new to this stuff, but it's just a bit of a fun book.
And that's a lot of what you're gonna get with Deadpool, right? You're gonna get a lot of fun.
It's not high art, mate. It's just a bit of fun in it. Honestly, I think if I was to recommend a Deadpool story, it would be a team book that Deadpool happens to be on, more so than a Deadpool book.
Yeah.
And how he works into that, or a guest spot where he's not the main protagonist.
I find that there's and I guess it's really just a writer thing, but thinking of Uncanny X-Force, for instance, there's that interesting thing again of him and Wolverine. Put them on a team together, you realize like, oh, this is a pretty interesting character. It's more to him than just the comedy.
There is a part of Deadpool where he just wants to be accepted. You know, there was a period of time in a lot of some of the stories that I've listed tonight where he keeps referencing being a member of the X-Men. He's not. And keeps saying he's a mutant, but he's not. You know? So,
right?
And he keeps saying this stuff, and he clearly wants to be part of something bigger. But it's just a case of like, okay, well, what team do we put him on? So in a way, it kind of makes sense for him to be on Thunderbolts, sort of. But you're still kind of going, would Thunderbolt Ross really have chosen such a complete wild card? But would he also have chosen the Punisher? Would he, you know, does this make sense? And sometimes you've kind of got to let that go a little bit because, and even, you know, we didn't question it as much, I think, when we were kids. And it kind of harks back a little bit to that. You know, just read it and have fun with it. It's a fun story. Here's the thing. I like watching films that are quite smart and make me think, and they've got good dialogue, or there's a really interesting plot twist or device or something I've never seen. That's what I really like to watch, okay? If, you know, on regular TV, when they do the regular playing a film on a Saturday afternoon thing or whatever it is, and they show Police Academy 2, I'm watching that shit. I can't help it. I can't help it. I'm going to do that. It doesn't always have to be the really smart, clever, fancy thing, and we don't have to feel like we're super advanced. Sometimes you just want to laugh at stupid crap. Or just be vaguely entertained and just not have to think about it too much. And that's probably what your Deadpool stories are.
Well, that was our Deadpool versus Wolverine. I hope everyone's got something to read. Dave,
Yes.
always a blast. Always a pleasure.
Likewise, sir.
Thank you. Peace out.
Peace.